Have you checked the children?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird here after a long playthrough to finally chime in and review and give my thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I did stream 2 episodes of this on day 1. I usually try and do launch day Let's Plays of horror games if I can. So I did 2, I think about 2-hour Let's Plays of this one, and in the second episode I got to a story beat that kind of bummed me out. I actually was able to go into this game entirely missing all the spoilers that leaked about a month or 2 ago. I can't even remember when. In fact, I bookmarked a lot of the videos talking about the spoilers because I wanted to watch their reactions, but I didn't want to be spoiled. So now I get to go back and watch all of those reactions to the spoilers and see what the spoilers actually were. But now I have finally actually completed my run through. I think I ended up at about 26 or 7 hours, something like that. And that was searching around quite a bit to make sure I got a lot of things. That was restarting a couple of checkpoints to make sure that I was able to do things perhaps a bit more efficiently. And after that, instead of doing more episodes live, because quite frankly, this isn't a gaming channel, and without an audience that's trained to watch gaming videos, those episodes don't tend to do very well for us. So just so you guys know, what I am planning to do is I recorded my entire playthrough, which came out to 13 total Let's Plays of about 2 to 3 hours long each. And so what I'm doing is I'm editing those down into essentially highlights episodes.
Get down here!
No!
Hey, whose birthday is it?
You can't keep doing that.
I want a good splash. We've got more exploring to do.
You can't keep doing that.
Geronimo!
So I'm going to be presenting those in the future. Might end up being like 3 episodes, something like that, of highlights of my playthrough. Judging by the first 3 episodes, that's down to 1 like half-hour highlights episode. So we'll see how it ends up going for the remainder, and probably about 3 episodes though. So look forward to that. It's all my best reactions and stuff. The gameplay is out there, and I'll explain why I'm just doing the highlights in the highlights episodes. But for the review, I'm going to do a non-spoiler section, and at the end I'll touch on some of the spoilers. So if you haven't made your way through the game yet, don't worry, you're safe here. I'm not going to explain exactly what happens or anything like that until the spoiler section, which I'll give ample warning to. But I am going to say, I'll do this review kind of like we do our other reviews. I'll start with my overall thoughts, then I'll start with the story, then I'll start with the gameplay, then I'll start with the environments and the graphics, and then I'll start with the sound design and the gore and graphic and scare factor, I should say. So, all right, starting off with my overall thoughts. The Last of Us Part 1 is perhaps my favorite game of all time. I loved that game, played it once in the original form and then once again and when the remaster came out. It's phenomenal. It's the game that has made me feel the most emotionally of any game I've ever played. So this one had a lot to live up to. And I loved Joel and Ellie. I absolutely loved them. This game had a lot to live up to. It, in no way, shape, or form, lived up to the first game in story. In gameplay, I enjoyed it. Although there was some repetition that I really just got tired of if you are playing stealth style. And that's a bit of a bummer, but the gameplay was still loads of fun. But man, the story just overshadows everything like a black cloud, and it's just a bit of a bummer for me. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to go ahead and get into the story. That's my overall thoughts. I enjoyed it, but nowhere near as much as the first one, and nowhere near as much as I had hoped I would. It's not even going to beat probably Doom Eternal in enjoyment for me for this year, so what can I say? And I've played a lot of games. I've been keeping a list this year because of quarantine. I had some time, but okay, story-wise, I will say that this game suffers the most because of its story. It is frustrating to say the least. There are moments that happen early in the story that do sort of overshadow the rest of the game, because basically you play as Ellie, and then you also play as a new character called Abby for about half the game. And the game sets itself up where Abby is not very likable, and yet you end up having to play as Abby for half the game. And it's really weird, and it is kind of a reset in the middle of the game that is unnecessary, and the game is twice as long as the original game. So in that sense, it's nice. Like, they're giving you more bang for your buck as far as hours played go, but man, unfortunately, everything kind of overstayed its welcome this time because it was so long. During my playthrough, I'm just like, oh man, when is this going to end? I kept checking towards the back half, like, how many chapters are left? Where am I? How much is going, like, how much is left? Because it just got, it just overstayed its welcome, especially when you're not engaged with the story or the characters as much as you want to be. The story felt a lot like shock value for shock value's sake. At times, I do understand that these things were done, these beats were told in this order for storytellers' sake, but I don't agree with it. I think that the story itself, if you're stuck with this story, ideally, if I had my druthers, I would want someone to take another crack at the story. But if we're stuck with this story, then I would say that we need to have reordered it. They mess with time and they jump around and they go between characters, and it just comes off as a bit of a mess, and you lose track of it by the end of the game, or at least I did. But if they had reordered a lot of what happened, for instance, I personally think that if they had moved Abby's sections all the way to the beginning of the game, I think the game would have played a lot better story-wise. If we start all the way where Abby's origins begin, which would lead to essentially where we were at the end of the first game, but from a different point of view, then we play through Abby's story, Abby's side of the story, where we get to know. Look, if we're going to be stuck playing as a different character, give us the different character first. Don't give us almost an entire game's worth of time with the character we love and then switch away for almost another entire game's worth of time with a character we don't know. Tell us this character's story first, right? Tell us all of Abby's story, and then even if you have to do it at the same breaking point you did after Ellie's story, do it the same way with Abby's story, and then go back and tell Ellie's story. And then all of these people that you kill that are part of Abby's crew throughout the game, you actually care because you know who they are, you know why they're important to Abby, and you're like, oh no, that's not, oh no, you know? I think it would have played better, even dramatically. The whole story would have played better. Everyone, I think, would have been less pissed if we had just played things almost in chronological order. Once you get to Ellie's thing, you know, go back and tell the immediate thing that happened after the first game. Like, all these things that we got in brief, well, semi-brief flashbacks throughout the game that were just used as dramatic breaking points, I think they would have been better all put together and fleshing out the story as it went. I think, again, then the end, you care way more about what happens. So the story was frustrating, to say the least, guys. It really hampered my enjoyment of the game. And look, I get that there's going to be there's going to be people that hated it, there's going to be people that enjoyed it. I am not like just a hater for hater's sake. I don't care about the fact that it's two female leads. I care about the way the story was presented. As you'll see in my highlights, I kind of enjoyed, you know, by the end, I cared about whether or not Abby died. So I guess that speaks to the storytelling. So, but just because the storytelling got me affected eventually, and by affected, I never shed a tear through this entire game. I shed multiple tears in the first game. Never shed a single tear in this game. I did get glassy twice. And I'll admit, I got a little glassy at the end because I was just like, no, I don't want this to happen. This has gotten so mean, so down, so dirty. I just don't want it to end this way. Like, the goodness in my heart was like, no, don't let it end this way.
Let her up, let her up, let her up.
Let her up. Let her up. That's what I was feeling while watching. So I guess the game did get a reaction out of me, but what I'm saying is I feel like if it had been presented differently, it would have affected me even more. It would have been even more effective for many, many people. So I think that the choice they made for artistic storytelling purposes, I think it backfired in this case. And the proof's in the pudding across the internet. You have some people that liked it. You have what seems to be at least a vocal majority. Now, granted, I will admit that in the time which I've been playing, there have been numbers put out by PlayStation saying that this is the fastest and like highest selling game in the time of the PlayStation's existence or something like that. Like, it is super high selling. And so it's not, the leaks obviously didn't hurt the sales of the game, and that's fine. And I'm not one of the people that's hating on the game just because this or that happens or anything like that. I'm legitimately trying to break it down as I played it and as it affected me, which is all documented in my Let's Plays, which will be, again, in the highlights. But it didn't affect me in the way that I wanted it to. It frustrated me. It made me upset at the story rather than making me upset for the characters, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm going to move on from the story. I keep circling back to it, but the gameplay itself was super fun. I do enjoy this. This is the kind of stealth gameplay that I can get behind. If this is the kind of stealth gameplay that's going to be in like Ghosts of Tsushima in July, then I am excited to give that a try, as long as it's not like a Dark Souls light like the way the last Samurai game was. I do like a good stealth game that's done where I can kind of see where everyone is, makes it a little easier on me. I enjoy this kind of gameplay. However, I will say that it got super repetitive, especially with you trying to do stealth. Now, I played it through on the normal mode. I am actually excited to play through on hard because you get to keep your upgrades and your weapons, which is going to make it more fun. However, it is so repetitive when you are doing stealth and you sneak up on everyone, and it's the same, literally the same single animation for each kind of creature that you kill in stealth for each character. But it is the same one over and over and over and over again, and it is just so such a bummer that they couldn't have invested in just a couple of extra, animations for this kind of thing. I don't know. It got frustrating to me. But the gameplay itself is fun. The gunplay is tight. The hiding is fun. It felt a little bit harder at times. At first, it took me a while to get into the swing of things and know exactly where everyone else was. But once I learned my listening mechanic a lot better, then it got a lot easier. And the dogs, are added new to this game, and they added a new sort of element in some of the encounters. It was always like, uh-oh, gotta take out the dogs first, which is a bummer, but I'm more of a cat person, so it didn't hurt me quite as much as I think it hurt everyone else. Nonetheless, it wasn't fun to do. But the gameplay elements I really enjoyed, and that's the only reason why I think I'll go back for a hard playthrough eventually. Maybe in a year or two, I'll go back and play through on hard on New Game Plus, because I can skip all the cutscenes that are going to disappoint me and go right to the gameplay, which didn't. So all in all, the gameplay I'm a big, big fan of. Graphically, this is perhaps the best looking game I've ever seen on the PlayStation 4.
God, it's such a gorgeous game still. Still marvel at how beautiful it is. Look at it, it's so pretty. I mean, it is coming down to look at it in sheets like that.
Like I would have said, Horizon Zero Dawn is up there, except that now I saw the footage of Horizon Zero Dawn 2 for PlayStation 5, and they showed the graphical comparison of the PlayStation 4 Horizon Zero Dawn, and I'm like, that's not quite as good as I remember it compared to The Last of Us 2. The Last of Us 2 is gorgeous. It's a fantastic game, and I played through on regular PlayStation, not even on the Pro. So I think it's fantastic. I got caught up a couple times in the actual graphicness of it all, and I was just like, wow, this is really cool, especially when it's raining. I love the fact that it took place in Seattle. So environmentally, even outside of the graphics, environmentally, the production design of the game, I loved it. I thought it was really cool. It didn't make sense necessarily, right? Because at this point, the apocalypse has only been going on for like 20, 25 years, something like that. and there are like full-on big old almost oak trees growing in the middle of the street, and I'm like, that wouldn't have happened in that amount of time. But nonetheless, I just let go of that sort of realism stuck in my own brain and just enjoyed the environments. I loved how lush everything looked. I loved the rain. I loved the water levels where you get to use the boat. I just had a lot of enjoyment just looking around the game. I was, so there's a lot of sort of, it's a mixed bag with this one for me. The story, which is such a huge element to game enjoyment for me, just was not great, but the gameplay and the graphics and the environments were amazing. So I can't hate on the game, right? Because I enjoyed the things that are core to the game. It's just, like, those are pretty much the core four things, right? You got the gameplay, you got the graphics, you got the actual production design and environments. I guess you'd say the characters too, which I'll touch on that. And then the last thing, which was the music and the gore and scare factors. So yeah, I'll get to those as well. The acting, I thought Ashley Johnson, I hope is her last name. I know it's Ashley, but I think it's Ashley Johnson. She was phenomenal as Ellie, although because of the story, I felt that she was much more limited. The Ellie in the first game had a much bigger range, and she was a bit more innocent and a bit more fun, a lot more fun, quite frankly, a lot more inquisitive, a lot more this and that has just made her a more lovable character. In this one, she is just so dark the entire game. As a result of what happens early on, she's so dark. She's just not fun to spend that much time with like she was in the first game. And Abby, the same thing. She's so dark from the very beginning that she's not that much fun to spend that much time with. So your two lead characters are not that much fun to spend time with. I get that your game is going for a tone, but I have to sort of enjoy spending time with these characters like I did in the very first game of this very series. So it can be done, you just didn't go for it. Apparently, Neil Druckmann, the director, the creative director of this game, said that the first game was, if it was about love, then this game was about hate. And yes, I can definitely see that thematically, but you gotta sprinkle in some love and some goodness in there to make us not hate the game. Because I said numerous times, and I'll try and, I don't know, I gotta figure out when I'm gonna release these things, because by the time I'm done with all my highlights, there's numerous times where I'm like, this game just makes me feel like crap. I just feel terrible all the time playing this game because the story elements just make me feel so bad.
I don't need your fucking help, Joel.
Jesus, this game just makes you feel like shit all the time. It's fucking horrible. Oh, God.
And that's not the way the first one worked. Like, the first one, there was a moment at the beginning that made me feel bad, but it made me feel bad in my heart and because I cared. This is just like, it's like, what else can this world, like, throw that's just the worst at these people and all the time and without, a recompense of any kind, without any stays of execution at any time. People die left and right in this game. And it is just not that fun to sit through. But Ellie was great. Joel was great. Ashley Johnson did a great performance as Ellie. However, the material she was given did not make me happy. So I do not blame Ashley Johnson for Ellie's personality-less, well, not personality-less, but emotionless delivery. That was what she was given to work with, and she did a good job with it. But it just didn't work for me story-wise. Abby, the actress was fine, but I just didn't care about her character. Owen and Mel and all of her group, they were fine, but again, when they introduce characters in a certain way and then take it back and ask you to like those characters, it doesn't work very well. The two kids were great. I'm gonna totally, Lev and Yara. Hey, I remembered, sweet. Lev and Yara were great additions. They were sort of Abby's cohorts. They were the Ellie to Abby's Joel in the game. So they were enjoyable. But again, the decisions they make story-wise And the fact that nobody's safe is just aggressive at times, y'all. It is just aggressive. So let's go with sound design. Sound design is great. They really dialed that in, and from the runners to the clickers to the shamblers to the bloaters, like each one sounds a little bit different, and they really use the omnidirectional sound in your headphones to echolocate where things can be, along with their, you know, white sort of shadows through the walls. You can see their kind of anti-silhouettes through the walls, and it's really cool audio-wise. It's really gross crunching and smashing and rending and ripping and biting and clawing and stuff like that. All of those sounds are amazing. And the music, though, I will say the music didn't hit me quite as iconically as the first one. Whenever the music would detour into the keys and the actual tunes from the first game, that's when I would get keyed into the music. But the music itself didn't really jump out to me like it did in the first game. I gotta be honest, it's not bad by any stretch, but when it's not, you know, lingering on tunes from the first game, it's not standing out as much, I gotta say. But, you know, lastly, I think as a horror game, we gotta talk about scare factor. There wasn't that much that scared me in this one. The game becomes about mechanics pretty early on. You learn to echolocate, you learn to read where the anti-silhouettes are, you learn to realize what weapons work best for what enemies. Are you trying to go silent? Are you trying to make noise? You start to use the bricks and the bottles and the glass and the environment a little bit more. You have a lot of opportunities to make that part of the gameplay fun if you really want to, or it can get repetitive like it did for me a little bit. But the scare factor, unfortunately, was never really there outside of one moment, which was what I would say is the single boss fight of the, well, I guess you could say there's two boss fights considering the ending, but the other boss fight, like the one sort of creature-esque boss fight, which you're just kind of thrown into unexpectedly, that was a cool fight. That scared me. I was legitimately freaked out.
He's right on top. Oh, good God, what the hell? Holy shit! What the hell is that thing? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Oh my God! Holy shit. Go, go, go! Holy shit. Run. Go, go. Run! Oh shit! Oh God. Oh God. Oh my God. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it.
I was constantly being chased by this massive thing that I wasn't expecting to have to face, so I did like that part scare factor wise, but otherwise the scare factors were more jump scare factors. At one point I'm riding on my horse and all of a sudden something explodes nearby and I'm just like, oh my God, you know, and it's just like, whoa.
Jesus! Oh my God. Whoa, that was completely unexpected.
But it's more jump scare than actual earned horror scares. Creeping around everything, that doesn't get scary to me because, you know, the mechanics were upsetting me at times because I was getting caught when I shouldn't have at times and stuff like that. So that wasn't scary. The one boss fight was kind of scary. Otherwise, not very much by way of scare factor here. Fun, but not very scary. So, guys, I think that's pretty much going to do it for my overall thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2. If you've played it, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Oh, I did say I would do a spoiler section, so let's... Alright, fair warning, guys. This is going to be the spoiler section of the game, and I'm just going to make it really brief here. So, fair warning, spoilers, but for those of you that are curious... Yes, early on, Joel is killed. You can see it in the second episode of the Let's Play that's actually up on the channel right now. The live episode happened live. I was not a fan, and the story just never really recovered. All the characters that Ellie kills through her Let's Play turns out are basically tangentially or directly friends of Abby, but we don't learn that until Abby's playthrough, which is after all of them are basically dead by the end of Ellie's playthrough. So you know not, you basically in the back of your mind know not to form an attachment to any of Abby's friends or anything because you know they're all gonna die. and it's just not that fun. I think, again, it would have fixed it if we had just moved Abby's stuff to the front. Then everything would have landed a lot better, but whew, yeah, it was just frustrating, guys. And then the end itself, keeping in the spoilers, Ellie is with Dina. Abby, you know, they have this confrontation, but they end up going their separate ways. Abby lets Ellie live and leaves. It's like, I don't ever want to see you again, and lets her live and leaves. And then at the end, Ellie is with Dina, who's had her kid. They're supposedly in love, living on a farm. It's wonderful. And then Tommy comes a knocking, saying they know where Abby is, and she just can't help herself. So Ellie goes and has to go and try and get her revenge. Ends up freeing Abby because Abby has been captured by another group that's introduced in literally the 11th hour, called the Rattlesnakes, who take out Abby and her kid cohort, and they're left strung up on a pole for like 30 days, which is how Abby shrinks down from her muscly size to, you know, someone that could actually fight. Someone that hasn't eaten very much in 30 days, that is nowhere near her normal self, is the only way Ellie could stand up against her. So they have that final fight, and then Ellie's about to get revenge finally and drown her, which I didn't want to happen again by the end of the game. I just wanted them to go their separate ways because the game made me so split on everything. There's nothing really to cheer for Ellie anymore, because Ellie has ignored all the good advice and gotten everyone she loves killed. And then Abby killed all those people that we loved, so I don't really care about her. So it's just so frustrating. But eventually Ellie lets her live. Abby goes off with Lev, who is alive because his sister Yara got shot to shit at one point, and man, it was just a mess of a game. And by the end, we see that Ellie goes back to the farm. Dina has long since gone, hopefully not died. The baby's gone, everything's moved out, so one would assume that they just left. Ellie's stuff is still in her room. They just left all of Ellie's stuff there, and Ellie goes to pick up the guitar, which she was playing all through the game, was a guitar, and in the last battle, Abby bites off 2 of Ellie's fingers so she can no longer play guitar. So she lost all of her friends, she lost all of her family, and she lost her ability to play the last thing that Joel gave her as a gift, which was the guitar. And by the way, speaking in the spoiler section, the fact that Joel was killed off the way that he was, so unceremoniously, which kind of betrayed his character. I don't think he would have walked into a room, let himself be surrounded, announced who he was, like Tommy invited these people back to their place and stuff. Like, it was so overdone. I don't think Joel would have done it, so I didn't like that from the start. That all frustrated me. It just set a bad tone. But that's my thoughts on the spoilers, you guys. I was overall disappointed with this game, unfortunately. Very unfortunately. But that's going to do it for my thoughts. Why don't you guys let me know yours in the comments down below. Try and avoid the spoilers if you can. But if you made it all the way to this part, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird, and remember, stay scared.